I don't know if that's happened to a lot of you when you're at work. You see your peers at work and you've been with them for a while and you just watch them and say, damn, how on earth could they be that good? That's the feeling I've often had with Smithy, and I can say that right to his face because he knows it. But Smithy, so many times I've stood behind while you've been on air, just listening. And I thought, that's not fair. How does he make it look so simple? Do you always think it's simple?
Not for 1 second, Harsha. I don't take any 30-minute commentary stint for granted at all. I think the reason why I don't take it for granted is because I don't know what's going to happen, and I always treat it that way. I always look forward to what's about to happen in the game rather than so much reflect on what has happened. There's always room for that, but it excites me. It really, it gets me really focused if I can imagine scenarios about to happen, if I can within my head predict something's about to happen, or I can just be patient and see it unfold. And so I've sort of trained myself over the years not to be a replay merchant, as opposed to someone who lives in the now and slightly in the future.
Exactly, yeah. It's an interesting word, replay merchant, yeah.
So that gives me I think that gives me a level of being up and an advantage that way.
When you were batting or when you were keeping, there would have been days when you said, this just seems right. I think I'm going to have a good day today. I'm hitting the ball well, I'm gathering it well, I'm moving sideways well. When did you first get that impression in a commentary box? I think I've got a future here.
Look, I've gone back a long way now. I go, yeah, we do, Harsha. Look, I go back to 1992. So
when you just finished?
Yeah, I went. What happened for me was I was very lucky because, in commentary positions, there's very few doors open up. You have to be in the right place at the right time, especially when you're starting out. And Television New Zealand was the rights holder at home back in that day. And it just so happened they had a spot for one person. And I had retired at the start of the year. And I'd done a little bit of work for them, and they said, do it, Connie, have a go. And it's as simple as that. But I think when I really realised that this is what I want to do, and where I thought to myself, gosh, this is a job, but it's a joy and it's a privilege. But man, I want to keep doing that. I think when I worked for the Big Four, Channel 9,
yeah.
So I sat alongside Richie Beno and Tony Gregg and Bill Laurie, Ian Chappell, and I thought to myself, I've heard so much about these guys, but I've seen them in action, that they've commentated me playing. And I thought, wow. You see, because
did you think you belonged right away?
No, I didn't. No, I thought I had so much to learn. Looking at the way that they established their rapport with one another.
Yeah.
But I also found out, that I had lost the love to play the game, but I had never lost the love for the game.
Correct.
So, and that's one of the incentives why I wanted to stay relatively close to them. I mean, these days, players tend to do it by becoming assistant coaches or something very quickly. A lot of people try to be commentators. A lot of people think that's a way to go, and it is, because there's so many more opportunities now than when we first started. I mean, there's a league played every month. The social media like this is a World Cup every 2 years.
Sometimes every few months.
And I know, it's endless at various levels. And so you can see it's not just a gig that can keep you interested and happy for, 2 months of the year. If you want to do it and do it well, there's real scope for it. So I don't know if I really felt like I belonged for quite some time. I think probably when I worked in my first World Cup.
96?
Yeah.
Tell you, I met Smith at the 96 World Cup in India. I'd seen him before, obviously worked a little bit with him earlier. Smithy took to television broadcasts like a fish to water, literally. And I don't know how you felt. The reason I asked you, when did you feel you belonged, is I'd seen you play.
Yeah.
And I knew you were a tough cookie behind the stumps. You didn't mind having a little chirp sometimes, with a smile came easily. And then I listened to you and I said, he was a good cricketer, but I think he's going to have an even better second innings.
Well, it's really kind of you to say, because if you do it right, your commentary innings is going to last longer than playing innings. So it was important to me that if you're going to do it, you're going to do it right, and so you have to establish I say rules, but you have to establish standards for yourself, and you don't want to deviate too far away from them. First of all, I decided that even though I was from New Zealand and people associated me with being a New Zealander, I found out fairly early on that I wasn't going to be a New Zealand commentator. I was a commentator from New Zealand, and people said, "Oh, what's the difference?" Yeah, well, the difference is that you don't look at the game as if you want New Zealand to do well every single moment in that game. You've got to be practical and say, look, they're a good force in world cricket, but they're not going to win all the time.
You know, I'm glad you brought this up. I was going to ask you this later on. I was going to ask you if you feel the pressure these days more and more, because I see in the broadcasting environment that you're almost expected to be your country's commentator.
Yeah.
Not just to be able to tell the stories associated with some of the younger players who you're likely to know better than the others, but almost to barrack. How do you cope with that? How have you kept that at bay? Because the world is moving that way slowly.
Well, I think you just do it over a period of time, and I think what also helps in that regard is when you travel the world, and it quite often pays if you can get the opportunity to travel almost into a neutral environment where you don't actually, it doesn't matter to you who wins and loses. So if I, for instance, go and I'll be working with you in Australia this year, Australia against India, I mean, there'll be a lot of passionate Australians in the commentary box. There'll be yourself and Rabri, and so a lot of passionate Indian people around. And there I'll be in the middle. And I want cricket to win. I want the occasion to win. I want the series to be magnificent. But at the end of the day, I will appreciate the good play, the success and the failures of both teams basically equally.
You know, it's interesting you say that, because we worked together last year.
Yeah.
I came across to do 2 test matches, Pakistan versus Australia.
Yeah.
And for a start, I don't know why I was called. I actually asked Box why he called me. But I felt exactly the same way.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is a trend moving. You've called so many great moments. Yeah. Have you ever felt, and I'll ask you about the great moments, but because I've sometimes been involved in those too, have you ever felt, wow, it's a big moment, they're trusting me with calling the big moment? Dude, don't get it wrong.
Yep, you do, because you only get one chance at it.
Yeah. You know, have you worried about that?
Yeah.
Have you not look like the kind who does?
I do worry about it because, we're recording things that, and particularly in big matches, World Cups and important moments that will go in history, milestone moments.
Yes.
You know, not just necessarily someone having a test win or but someone scoring their 10,000th test run.
Or Elliot hitting Stain for 6, or the Beresford margins.
Or Nathan Lyon getting his 500th test wicket, or Jimmy Anderson his 800th. I mean, they only get them once. And, you know, you've got to be prepared that you can get it right, you know. And I'll be honest with you. And people say, "Well, do you write down phrases?" You know, I don't. I don't.
I was going to ask you about that.
I don't write phrases. Have I got phrases in my head? I've got thoughts in my head, but nothing rehearsed. And you talk about 2019, the ebbs and flows in that game, and then the super over, right to the very last run of Martin Guptill's, or attempted run of Martin Guptill's. No one knew who was going to win. No one had a phrase. I didn't have a phrase for England winning. I didn't have a phrase for New Zealand winning. I thought about it more afterwards than I did at the time, actually. What would I have said if had Martin Guptill reached out and made it? Would I have said something along the lines of, New Zealand, little old New Zealand, have reached their, get all flowery, their cricketing Everest. And let me tell you, the view's pretty good from up here. Something along those lines, you know. And I thought, well, that'd be a bit corny, but I probably wouldn't have never said that at the time. But I would have thought to myself, what, did I have a line? Somewhere in here, I would have hoped that I had a line. I didn't know in the last World Cup that when Afghanistan had Australia, 7 for 90, that Glenn Maxwell was going to come out and do that.
Yeah.
You were there, you saw it, you reflected on it, you looked at it and you thought, well, we've both seen so much cricket, you probably think we've seen it all at least once.
And you haven't.
We haven't.
This great game tells us every day that you haven't.
Yeah.
The reason I asked you that was we were broadcasting together, India playing Pakistan 2022 World Cup. You were down by the side, and you were capturing the excitement so well. I'm sitting in the box, And I'm thinking, can India pull this off? And should India pull this off, do I have a line?
Yeah.
Because then I realized if I had a line, I'd go searching for the line.
Yeah.
And I might miss the moment.
Yeah.
And so the line happened. The line I actually wanted to use came a lot later.
Yeah.
But that's why I asked you, because you've been in so many moments. You say you're a New Zealand commentator, and not a commentator. So you're a commentator from New Zealand, not a New Zealand commentator. And yet, in those very, very tense moments, and there were more Indians who felt bad than the Kiwis when they lost. But was there a part of you that was saying, go Kiwi, go New Zealand, go? And almost the emotion, I mean, it was captured on camera, and there you are down saying it's a super over. Was there that feeling, I wish New Zealand win this?
Well, what people wouldn't have seen in those shots is on my right shoulder was a fellow by the name of Brendan McCullum.
Yes.
And he wasn't part of the commentary roster for that moment.
Yes.
His day is done. But he was on my right shoulder, out of sight. And he would tap me and say, we've got this. We've got this, money. Get ready, we've got this. And I was just tie-ho, mate. I've seen a lot of cricket, this tie-ho. But he was a great player, but a very new commentator.
Yes.
And he's a very positive, glass half full. You know, what he's like in his coaching and his playing. That's what he was like in his commentary. In other words, we've got this. New Zealand, we're about to create history. We're about to create history. And I kept saying to myself and just going to him, just wait for a second. Just wait for a second. Let's wait and see how this pans out.
And Brendan McCullum's tapping you on the shoulder.
I mean, he's saying to me the whole time, we've got this. We've got this. We've got this. And I got Simon Dole, who's, because it had stretched out to that point, his role was actually to go and interview people on their reaction after the game. And he was stuck down there waiting to see who was going to win. His questions changed from ball to ball because we didn't know who was going to win. So there was a bit of a Kiwi presence there. So yeah, sure, as a collective, of course we wanted us to win. But you also got to bear in mind, one, it was the most magnificent afternoon out, wasn't it? It was the greatest day. Was to reflect, and you can't afford to miss that. You can't afford to overdo that with parochialism or favoritism, and so you just slip back into that mode. And that's why I like when they put commentary rosters together and they're working in World Cups. You get that you're able to achieve that balance by who you work with. And that day was at NASA, of course, England, New Zealand, and
Judge Bishop, yes.
A man of all reason, of all balance, of all calmness was sitting down the end. So it was really good. And, you've got to also remember that England and New Zealand had never won. We'd never won. So the moment we fronted up at Lord's that morning, there was going to be a new winner of the 50 over World Cup. Who it would be, we do not know. But it was pretty cool because New Zealand wasn't a big scoring final, but I knew New Zealand would protect it with everything that they had because that's always been their way. That is usually that they defend it.
I think we're a bit unfair to New Zealand sometimes when we say they punch above their weight because they've been a really good side. But the one thing you know from New Zealand is the game is never over till that last ball is bowled. You've often said that you like to feel the emotion of the game as it is developing. And you get into that emotion, and maybe that's why you've called so many great moments. Has the emotion got to you, for example? Has there been a day when you said, I wish I wasn't so emotional about the moments? Like Grant Elliott's hitting Dale Steyn for 6, you call that.
Yeah.
Or maybe, did you also call a Rugby World Cup?
That was interesting. Those are, I call Rugby World Cups as well, but not so much as the play-by-play.
Well, you're the sideline.
Yeah, you're sort of third wheel, so you get last crack at it. But in cricket, when you are calling it, I quite often get out of my seat when the moment is there. I think it was in back to 2019. I was out of my seat a lot. When Shamar Joseph knocked over Josh Hazlewood a few months back at the Gabba, I was up, absolutely up. And then you've got to realise how you're going to do this. I mean, we look at what's happening. You've got to look at what's happening on the screen as opposed to what's happening at the window, because if you start describing something that people aren't going to see,
I'm so glad you brought that up.
I hate that. And so getting back to technique or whatever, I'm probably 90% what's happening on the screen, 10% out the window. So if you're alongside me working with me and you're talking, I'm looking at things out the window. But when it's my turn to talk, I have to talk about what's there. So I get a preempt. I can see who's warming up or who's stretching, or if someone's off the park or why they're off the park, or someone's having a chat to somebody. Someone's warming up thinking that there might be a surprise bowling change. That's when you get your chance to preempt. And you might, gee, that guy knows his tricks.
So now you're calling it, and you're looking at that screen.
Yeah.
Cameras are getting more and more powerful every day. And the folk coming closer and closer.
Yeah.
And someone plays, boom, flick off the off his pads. It's gone in front of square.
Yeah.
And now you want to see if it's going for 4 or no. And you look up, but you don't know which side of the ground it is.
Yeah.
So I find myself very often confused between whether I should be watching this or I should be watching the play. And though I'm aware if I'm watching the play, I can't tell people what's not on the screen.
Yeah.
So I find more and more that these days I'm going towards the game rather than the screen. And guess what? The moment I go there, there's a little inside edge onto pad.
That's right.
Which you won't catch.
No,
there.
No, exactly. You're right. It can make a fool of you.
Yeah.
It can honestly make a fool of you. And then, so somehow you've got to get yourself out of it, or you just run with it and move on. And we make mistakes. That's the thing. That's the other thing. I mean, when you call cricket like we do, and there's so many variables and things that can happen, you're bound to be getting it wrong every now and then. And if you could acknowledge the fact that you got it wrong, or look, all you have to say is, I got it wrong, and move on. It fooled me. I didn't see it that way. And move on. Decisions, that are reviewed, countlessly reviewed these days. We might say, oh, that's got to be out. It's our first reaction. That's so close. Got to be out. All of a sudden it's reviewed and it's missing by that much. And you think, well, all you can say is, look, got it wrong. I fully understand why I gave it out in the first place. Well, those are those, and that's not bad. That is just treating it how it happened.
The day I realized that if you got it wrong and you say, sorry, I got it wrong, I just found so much pressure going off that it's okay. I mean, Brian Lara plays and misses, Tendulkar plays and misses, and who am I? They get down with the England.
They get not.
Yeah.
Bradman didn't get.
There you go. There you go. How much of being a player do you bring into your broadcast? Because now it's been, 92, so it's been 32 years.
Yeah.
And yet the instincts of a player, and the only reason I'm asking you is we come from different parts.
Yes.
So how much of that instinct as a player comes into calling the game?
I think quite a lot. I think that's one of my advantages. The game has changed immensely since I played. But the thought of T20 cricket was a joke.
You might have been a good T20 player, actually.
Can you remember Cricket Max?
Yeah, I remember. Yes. Heat sweepers in that red. That's right. Yeah.
If you had, I was part of commentating that. I didn't think it would go anywhere because I just didn't think cricket was going to evolve that quickly. And not long after that, of course, we know what happened. The T20 world appeared, and look what's happened now. And it's the reason why I'm sitting here talking to you. So, look, yes, of course it did. I mean, I've lived most of the moments that have happened out there. I've lived the success, the failures, the catches, the stumpings, the missed opportunities. So I know exactly what's going through people's minds when that kind of thing happens. But less and less, I think of the game as a former player. In fact, not very much at all now. I think of the game as a describer, as a descriptive person, as someone who has to just be there for the people that are tuning in and being sort of a conduit between them, of course, not being up the ground. So atmosphere is another thing that we're sort of occasion, atmosphere,
energy. If I had to describe you in a few words, one of those would always be energy.
Yep.
And does that come from being rested? Does that come from just the sheer adrenaline, the sheer joy of being there? Do you get tired, for example, at the end of a day that you've put in a lot of energy? Because you're never short on energy. And that's why you get all the big moments to do.
But the thing is, I think my energy levels depend on the style of cricket we're about to go and commentate. If, for instance, we're going to Kensington Oval tomorrow or wherever tomorrow to commentate the first day of the Test match, I won't be charged to the extent I will be going for a T20 Super 8 match or a quarter-final or semi-final. I'll arrive ready to go, because the first ball of the game could whistle out of the park, or the first ball of the game could end up in a missed run-out opportunity, and you can't afford to ease yourself into a match like you can a test match. You can ease yourself into a test match like the players do. That first morning when the nerves are there, you can have those, and you can just reflect on a slow but sure start, and that's the way you go. And then you'll have that devastating spell of bowling, which has the opposition 4 for 40, and that's an uptime. That's a real uptime. And you just got to...
And that happens. You can make it happen. That happens.
I can't govern that.
Yeah.
And, the other thing is I don't write commentary rosters.
Oh.
In 2019, I worked on a lot of World Cup games and that thing. I didn't work the last game all the time, the last stint every time. Could have been Bhogle, not Smith, calling that. Remember when... it goes back to Old Trafford, the 2-day, 1-day game between New Zealand and India.
We'll bring it up if you must.
Yeah. Shall we?
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? That was an uptime. The run out of Guptill on Dhoni, the innings that Jadeja played, the sitting alongside for the first time. And that's another interesting thing, because you're working in situations often in World Cups where you're working with someone for the very first time. You know them as a player. You know what they've achieved there, but you don't know how your rapport is going to be with them as a commentator. So in a very crucial stage there, I find myself working with Sorev. And Sorev and I had never worked together. I'd known him to talk to very briefly. But all of a sudden, you're trying to establish this partnership.
I know what you're saying, yeah.
And you have to respect each other's boundaries. He's there as the expert, I'm there as the caller. So you can't overstep that. It's finding that, that little mix, that balance.
Are you switched on all day?
No.
I found Bill Laurie, for example, Bill Laurie never left the commentary box because he said, I must know what my colleagues are saying. I must be able to relate to that. He didn't miss a ball. He just sat there. The only time I could speak to him when I wanted to at one point was in the break. Are you switched on all the time? You just switch off and then switch on, say, a couple of minutes before your stint starts?
I don't think you can, of myself anyway. It's in my makeup. I couldn't be switched on to the extent Bill Laurie is, or was all the time. I know exactly what him. I've seen it day after day. I took my lead there a little bit from the master, the great Richie Bennett, who was always aware of what's going on because he's listening. But he's also tapping away on his computer. He's either answering correspondence or looking at something else, but it'll be pretty much cricket orientated. He was always doing something. He was always there or thereabouts. And as soon as something happened, a drop catch, a missed opportunity, he would watch that because that's the point of reference back.
And since you say so, someone I've admired for his work ethic, he polarized opinion as a hard-talking man, Ian Chappell.
Yeah.
But Ian Chappell loved watching his baseball.
Mm.
And Ian Chappell would have his glasses down there like that.
Yeah.
Like that. And he's watching baseball, but he's also looking up like that.
Yeah.
It's almost as he's watching two games, but he didn't miss a ball either. Do you find it easy to go between Test cricket and T20 cricket, or do you find you're just the same in both forms?
No, I don't find it easy. I think Test cricket is my thing. It's my natural.
No, it is. I mean, it is, but it's not that the other isn't.
I look forward to Test cricket. I really do. I look forward to talking about Test cricket. I look forward to storytelling, to banter, to things happen so quickly in T20. It's very easy to miss a moment that's in your head. So the game's moved on so quickly. In Test cricket, you can come back to it. On Test cricket, you can have rapport. You know full well that in commentary boxes, which people do not see, is there's a lot happens out the back. There's a lot of banter.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reminiscing. There's a lot of talking about other things apart from cricket. And that's where you establish your groups and your rapport with people on air. So if you've got a really happy, buoyant atmosphere, charged atmosphere with fun out the back, and fun's a big word, you'll find it coming out the front when it's your turn. So I just find that it's so important to have a good mix of people who get on. Doesn't mean to say that you have to go and sit at a bar and drink till 3 a.m. To find that you get on. You can just have a bit of breakfast. You can establish a nice rapport on the ride to the ground. But as long as you've got that nice balance out away from the microphone, I find more often than not them come to the microphone.
As you look back, Smithy, there was the semi-final of the 92 World Cup. It was a dream run for the New Zealand side.
Yep.
I called a couple of the New Zealand games. India, New Zealand might have been at Dunedin.
Yep.
You always stuck us up in Dunedin because it was cold.
Yeah.
You knew these warm Indians would come and get stuck there to have the game done. There was heartbreak, but there was pride in what you achieved in 92. And then what you did in both the 2015 World Cup and the 2019 World Cup as a broadcaster. Prouder of reaching that semi-final as a player, or prouder of the immaculate way you called both New Zealand versus South Africa in 15 and New Zealand versus England in 19?
Look, I think, Alan's ever asked me that before. I would be thinking to myself, pride in the commentary, pride in getting it right at the time. Because at the end of the day, 1992, whilst it was a great ride, it ended in disappointment, and we didn't get the result that we wanted to, and we ended up as flat as a pancake after that, and that was my last game of cricket ever. So there were a number of reasons to reflect on that. But I think, 2019, that game at Lord's, a lot of people have said it's the greatest game of cricket of all time. I haven't lived long enough to close, but living long enough, but I haven't lived long enough to know. I never called it the Tide Test match. Of 5 days of hard work coming down to one moment. I mean, all I know is
no balls.
No balls. Yeah, and I just, we forget the pressure that was on Guptill, the pressure that was on Jofra Archer, whose path to that World Cup to be able to play for England had been sped up, so he could be available.
Started here in Barbados,
right here, and all of a sudden he is the man who the whole of England had been entrusted to do a job for them, and in the end he got it done. And
I think these things happen, Smithy. One of the reasons you call the good lines well is that you're watching a lot of cricket when you're not calling it.
Yeah.
And it's what you do when you're not calling it that determines how good you are when you're calling it. And that's how it was with Jofra. Jofra couldn't play for England. He went around, played all the leagues around. He had a lot of super overs there where nobody was watching, and then came here.
Yeah.
So, do you have ambitions still? I mean, I'd love before I finish to call India winning a World Cup, and I'm okay if that doesn't happen, but I'd love that.
You might be only a week or so away from that. You don't know.
Do you have ambitions still?
I'd like to call. I'd like to call a genuine Test series, and hopefully I'm about to, where every day has got atmosphere and hype, and every day has got importance, and it really, really matters. Because one of my concerns is I absolutely love Test cricket. I love it, and it's just under pressure. Yeah. And I want to see series like Australia versus India following year as the Ashes.
Yes.
They're the kind of things I'd like to commentate on before I sort of said, nah, I've had enough. I'm done.
Did you ever believe that your best years as a broadcaster, you had some great years before too, but your best years as a broadcaster would come after you were 60?
No.
Isn't that incredible?
It is, actually. I mean, you're happy to get the email to say, have you got a couple of months to come and spend some time with us? I mean, and to actually get to that situation where, one, they ask you to come, two, they ask you to do the big games, three, they ask you to do those roles within the big games. It's pretty cool to come. Yeah, I mean, look, you can commentate as long as your voice holds up and your brain holds up and your eyes are good. I think you can do that. So I don't know if there's an absolute age limit on it. I can't remember how long it was till Richie finally finished, but
some 70s. Sometimes your mind knows what to call, but the lips don't articulate the right words.
Correct, absolutely, and sometimes your lips know what to do in the moment, but you can't remember what the moment was.
That doesn't happen.
And I think that's a pretty good sign. So I look forward to the next couple of years. I would love having just been in. One of the highlights of the World Cup in India that we just did was, I hadn't been to India for around 20 years, and to see how India had advanced in terms of everything, really. It was quite special to me, and I said to myself, this could be tough, you know, you're getting on a wee bit, and this 50-odd days in India could be tough on you. You're going to spend a lot of time in your room alone, and I was fascinated by it. I was absolutely fascinated by the cricket, the grounds, the facilities, the travel, the advancement of the country absolutely staggered me in that. And people say, how was it? I said, I loved every second.
And I'll tell you why Smith is saying that. Many, many years ago, 30 years ago, it might have been the first series I was hosting, Bhubaneswar to Cuttack. Every single day. It was raining, do you remember? And you were counting how many cars were overturned on the way.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
It was. And we had to travel. Every single day we had to travel just in case it would start on time.
And it never did.
Never did. Yeah. It was fascinating, but and those days can get to you a wee bit.
Yeah,
they can get to you.
We've come a long way as a country in terms of infrastructure from when you came around in '94, or indeed when you came along to play the '87 World Cup.
That's right.
We've come a really long way, and I'm overjoyed that towards the tail end of my career, I'm able to see a lot of that. Smithy is always fun to chat to. Elliot Hiddingstein or the last ball? What gave you more satisfaction? The last ball of the 2019 World Cup?
I think the last ball of the 2019 World Cup, two entirely different outcomes. One a victory for New Zealand, one a loss for New Zealand. But I think 2019, and I'll say this also because I had no idea that people would comment or have that opinion about what we were able to do as broadcasters that afternoon, and the feedback in particular from that afternoon at Lord's, I think is probably the thing that when I do say enough's enough, or the people powers that be say you've had enough, I think that's the one afternoon I look back more fondly and just say, well, I think what's the word you're looking for when you say you've reached your peak, or you've had your moment of absolute satisfaction. That was it.
I'm sure when you were playing, you looked at a player and said, wow, I wish I could have hit that shot. For a lot of us watching in that day, we've all been in broadcasting all these years. It was one of those moments really when we said, one, wish we could have been on, but two, just as well we weren't, because not sure would have called it as well.
Yeah.
So well done. It's been great chatting with you, and hopefully we'll be two old romantics chatting a lot about the game we love.
We will. I'm looking forward to what happens here in beautiful Barbados, and I'm looking forward to Australia with you as well. That'll be cool.
Cheers, Mitty.
We're going to be doing a lot of interesting things on this channel, so do subscribe. I look forward to hearing from you.